Welcome to A Champion's Journey podcast. I'm Matt Davidson. From an early age, I've had the privilege of learning from world champions and world-class performers, and I've always been fascinated by what drives them to the pinnacle of achievement. In this podcast, I'll interview high performers to learn more about the habits, rituals, tactics, and strategies which have aided them throughout the course of their journeys so that we can take those lessons and apply them to ours. The mission of a Champion's Journey podcast is to interview not only those who have stood on the top podium in arenas of high-level competition, but to learn from those who have conquered life's greatest challenges and have dared to live life on their own terms. I'd like to welcome my next guest back to the podcast, extreme sports athlete, Michael Brewer. Mike, welcome back, brother.
Hey, Matt. Good to be back.
Appreciate you being here. We've got a lot to catch up on. The last time we talked, you've done a lot since then. And I guess we can add to your list of things, Red Bull athlete now.
Yeah, I guess so. You were hinting at it last time I was on the podcast, and now here we are.
Right. Yeah. So if we can just go right into it, and you can start to tell us all about that. How did you get selected? And then tell us all about the experience. So exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I might be the worst person to tell you about the selection process. It was all fairly mysterious, and kind of I was out of the loop the entire time. So I actually didn't know most of the story until I listened to John DeVore give a podcast on the Exit Point podcast. And then I was like, oh, he told a lot of the story there. I was like, oh, thanks. I never heard any of that. But as far as I know, the shortish version is back in like 2016. I think they were thinking about looking for like who they would keep their eye on. Jason Russell threw my name in the hat, or so I'm told. And then nothing happened for a long time. I kind of he told me about that, and then I forgot that ever happened. And anyway, fast forward to somewhere in 2023, late 2023, I think. Amy Shemlecki kind of was like, hey, are you like not interested in being on Red Bull? Because I've kind of been like subtly dropping hints maybe that the guys kind of might like you and want to take a look. So if you want to not let that opportunity pass by, you should write an email. And I did. And it was all very like a slow start, but basically they started kind of bringing me on to little training camps or places where I could kind of just help them out using like maybe my film skills, or then, brought me on to like ground crew demos, basically learn what the team does and just see if I get along with the team. And through that whole process, never once did they tell me how anything was going. Like none of the team. I don't know if they would like get together at the end of an event and like have some backdoor conversation, like a debrief or whatever. I don't think anything like that was actually happening, but yeah, it was silly. Basically, no one ever told me anything. And then in late November of last season, like 2024, John came to the head up world record attempts and just was like hanging out. Amy was there, obviously. Jeffro was there. Our manager was there. And I just figured it was because it was a world record event. And during one of the big team debriefs of like the core, the 40 people, John kind of like interrupted and was just like, hey, I just want to, like kind of change the channel here for a second. I'm going to like give you a little speech, and started talking about the team and how they hadn't added anybody in a really long time and, whatever. And then kind of just pulled a helmet out from behind the television that we were debriefing off of with my name on it.
That's awesome.
It was a pretty wild moment.
And you had no idea
I had no idea
that was going to go down. That's cool.
Yeah. Even like my friends there were kind of mad at me because they thought, oh, for sure you should have known something was happening and you didn't tell me. And I was like, I had no idea until that helmet was in my hands. And then I was like, oh, here we go. So
man, that's cool. I wonder if, in the skydiving community is relatively small, right? And I think if they have their eyes on someone, I would imagine that they're just kind of gauging behavior, experience, and just how you interact with other people and those kind of things. I would imagine. Do you have any ideas how much of their selection is based off of how good of a teammate you are, and how you talk to the public as opposed or including your experience and up to that point?
Yeah, again, I'm not the person to speak to this. I'm the new guy for sure. But it seems pretty safe to say that they care that you can do the job. Like, you represent the brand well. You've got the skills, creativity, kind of that little extra, I think, that most people would expect from Red Bull athletes. And then definitely you need to be personable. And the Red Bull Air Force has been around for so long, and it's been the same group of people more or less. And they get along really well, and they work super well together. And it's very important, I think, for them to preserve that. So it must be scary for them to bring on somebody new. And, I would expect that making sure that you fit into that equation is important. That's, I think, kind of the basics that I could safely speak to, but outside of that, I'm the new guy.
Right. Oh man, so cool. It's got to be so exciting. I mean, you're from all the media that, I see that you post, it's, you're living my dream when I think I was a younger guy, and, you're just doing all the cool stuff. It's great to see. And I'll bet it's really exciting. What was the next step for you? You went to a couple training camps, right?
You're talking about like during selection, or like once I'd already...
Once you'd already made it on.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty straight into the fire, like it was a pretty hot start, I guess. I started kind of just doing some demos right away, and got to do a demo back home in Salt Lake City, which was cool. And a couple projects. I think I went and filmed like a production gig, putting like a red camera on my head and helping out with that. And then, it's just been kind of straight into what the team does. And then, we did a training camp in the Bahamas. So there's like an annual training camp that the global team, the global aerial team does, to kind of like get together, share ideas, come up with cool content, and then, obviously like push ourselves and each other. So, this year it happened in the Bahamas. And I mean, it kind of broke the internet. I mean, if you're in air sports, like, you definitely saw all the videos if you're in air sports and you're on Instagram. So, oh
yeah. One of the ones that, I remember was the aerobatic pilots doing some crazy low level stuff, around the island there.
Yeah. I mean, a really big shout out to those guys on the team. Aaron, Kevin, Kirby. I mean, like, everyone kind of from the skydiving point of view looks at what the Red Bull Air Force is and does, and sees the skydiving side. But man, the aerobatic pilots that we have on the Red Bull Air Force are absolutely next level, super cool, super easy to work with, and just like so good at what they do. And it just adds this insane dynamic to the team.
Oh, it looks like all the athletes are, up to that incredible level too. And seeing some of the stuff that you guys have done, over the past several months, like the where you guys were flying with Luke Aiken's plane. And can you tell us something about that? That looked really, really cool.
Yeah, that was something that I got to do for the first time last April, I think, during like a U.S. team train up. And they were kind of all sitting around the hangar just like, oh yeah, we're gonna, what should we do next? And Luke was like, well, I have the silver plane, like the one with the air brake on it, so we can free fall next to it. And so, within 15 minutes that had evolved into like, all right, cool, we're all gonna like strap on a bunch of smoke, jump out of the Otter, go carving with the silver plane. And, like, again, that video just went crazy, and the experience was insane. I mean, it's so beautiful. It's like the world's coolest skyball ever. So, and I just remember thinking like, wow, that was 15 minutes on a Tuesday afternoon for these guys.
Wow.
Like, I'm living in a different world right now. And that's...
So I was going to ask you to walk us through how something like that goes down from concept to execution. And so you're saying that literally took 15 minutes. So you guys just came up with the idea, discussed it amongst yourselves, and then if you could, just kind of walk us through the process. Well, I mean,
that would be a bit of an oversimplification because there was a lot of design work that went into making that plane.
Gotcha.
Obviously, the plane wasn't just, it was made for a plane swap, the stunt that Luke and Andy were doing together.
Right.
And with that plane, like being designed specifically to be free fell next to by skydivers. It was just kind of there and ripe for the opportunity. But to come up with like the concept to go carve around it and just have a sick time around it and, strap a bunch of smoke on and get a good angle filming it and some pictures and whatever, like, yeah, that's kind of how the team works. They know what resources they have available and they're really creative and they like to have a good time and they know it looks good. And it was just, that's kind of how the guys are.
That's awesome. It's going to be super exciting to be around a group like that where everybody's, operating at just another level as far as creativity, not only skill, with what they specialize in, but also, that level of creativity. That's going to be really cool.
Yeah. And everybody on the team kind of like complements each other, like they're not nice to they're nice to each other, but like, I don't mean they compliment each other, like, right. Oh, you're so good at this. Like they each fulfill a role. And each person is pretty good at everything, but one person is always going to be like really, really good at like one specific thing. And then those are all complementary skills. And, it just allows them to like pull off crazy stuff, and to be in that environment is super cool. And it's like a little intimidating. Every once in a while I feel silly because like creatively I'll kind of like bring up an idea and be like, hey guys, what do you think of something like this? And they'll be like, oh yeah, we did it in like 1998. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was 5. I'll try again.
Oh, that's cool. You're not afraid. It seems like an environment where you're not afraid to, bring stuff up like that. And, who knows, if you find yourself in an environment where you're afraid to bring those kind of ideas up, then you might miss something that wasn't done before that might be the next, thing that breaks the internet.
Yeah. And one thing I can say is, as much as the guys have done, they all still like to have a good time. So, even if it's already been done or whatever, or if maybe that we're just putting a twist on something new, like everyone seems really stoked to help out. And that's really cool to kind of walk into. Cause it was really intimidating for me. Still is a little bit. And for sure was for like the first 6 months doing stuff with those guys. I was watching them as a teenager on the internet, right, thinking like, oh, one day it'd be really cool to do something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like pretty wild feeling to walk into that crew now. And, the fact that they're so open and willing to help and kind of stoked, to help push ideas forward is, it's really helpful. In order like toward like fostering creativity and keeping the energy high. Right.
You're watching it when you're a kid. Now you're doing it now. It's so awesome. And especially considering, some of the things with your, with the accident that you had a few years ago and how you've recovered from that, you're just thriving on a whole new level. We'll get into that a little bit. I do want to talk about, before we move on, too much further, I wanted to ask you about the jump with the Red camera. What were you shooting that for? And if you could talk about some of the preparation that went into that.
So Red Bull has recently gotten back into NASCAR. So we were out there kind of like shooting a fun, silly little social content commercial, where the Red Bull Air Force delivered some NASCAR tires to the drivers. Like we were just kind of like coming in to save the day or whatever. Nice. We just needed someone to strap a camera to their head while, I think it was Luke and Andy tandemed some big NASCAR tires out the door of a caravan. And, that was kind of the job. It was pretty fun. As far as preparation goes, I know that they test jumped the tires, and me is just like, haven't really had the opportunity to jump cameras that big before. So I actually went out and rented a Red camera. It's pretty easy to do, and it's not very expensive actually to do that. There's a lot of companies out there that offer that service. So I rented one, to help. So just so that I could like design the mount for it and make sure that it fit my helmet and that it was secure and that I knew the ins and outs of the camera. And then I went and test jumped it a few times, shot some video of like James Rogers doing a free routine in Z Hills kind of around New Year's. It was fun, kind of like side gig, just pick up some cool media and get to try something new. And then that way I was able to show up on the day of the shoot and be comfortable and feel prepared.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Did you find any major differences? I mean, it's a bigger camera than what you normally jump, right?
Yeah. And it's also more kind of like big film oriented, which in some ways means it's actually like way easier to use. It's very purpose built. And when it's stripped down to its smallest size, it's still, a little bit bigger and more awkward than like some of the mirrorless cameras I typically shoot with, but it's actually not that bad. So yeah, it's cool.
Cool. And talking about the creativity with some of the shoots, I'm trying to remember, didn't you guys jump into, I believe it was Vegas, was it the Hard Rock, by the Hard Rock Hotel?
Okay, I see. Yeah, flashing lights and giant guitar-shaped hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see why you'd get that confused. I was actually in Miami.
Okay, right. Probably
one of the coolest weekends of my life so far. I'm super stoked that I was able to slide in on that one, but it was 3 demos in 2 days. And
that was for the F1 race, right?
Yeah, so it was F1 weekend. There was the New York Red Bulls, the soccer team versus Inter Miami. There was a match. So we jumped into the match. That was really, really cool. It was a cool stadium, pretty fun experience. And then we hauled tail straight from the stadium to the Hard Rock Hotel, to the airport to go get on the helicopter to go jump into the Hard Rock Hotel like an hour later or something, hour and a half later. So then it was a night pyro jump into the hotel. So it's this big guitar-shaped hotel with lights, like all over it, just like neon, crazy casino looking place. And there's like a soundstage in the back, and there Sophie Tucker was playing an EDM concert.
Nice.
And then there's like a giant pool. So we got to fly high performance parachutes with pyro on out of the helicopter at night, past the hotel, and then swoop into the pool.
So cool.
And just land in the water and then go to the Sophie Tucker party, which was really, really fun.
Oh yeah, I love her music.
Yeah.
I bet that was fun.
It was fun. And I had a total new guy moment on that one. I had flight issues getting in the night before. So I had like 2 hours of sleep or less. And on top of some other little bumbles that day, I brought the pyro, I brought the activators, the mount, everything. But I forgot my trigger actually, to fire the pyro at the hotel. So sitting there panicking at the FBO as we're about to get picked up by the helicopter. Oh no, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to do this jump with no pyro. It's kind of like the point of the jump for the crowd.
Right.
It's just really embarrassing. And luckily I had Sean and some buddies back at the hotel who were able to kind of drop off the remote up by the helipad. So we did a quick little pit stop on the helipad next to the hotel, and then grabbed my pyro remote, and then I was able to do everything business as usual. It was okay. But yeah, that was my big new guy moment that week. I'm like, never make that mistake again.
Right. Yeah.
And then, the next morning I got to jump into the starting grid of Formula One Miami.
So cool.
Which, super cool.
Did you guys get to hang out in the pits as well?
Not so much in the pits, but Red Bull has like the energy station there, which is just kind of like 3-story constructed building with like a couple bars and places where you can watch the race, and it's like right on one of the hairpin turns at the end of one of the straights. So it's pretty high action area. So yeah, we hung out there and watched most of the race and then bailed out. It was fun.
With so many highlights so far, what's one of the ones that stands out to you most?
I mean, that weekend was huge. Otherwise, I think the Bahamas was one of my favorite just overall experiences. And if I had to pick like a specific jump from the Bahamas, it would be jumping out of Aaron's helicopter over the water and then linking up with Kevin, one of the aerobatic pilots, under parachute. And then he was flat spinning his plane while I was spiraling my parachute. And we were so close together. So he's just basically doing the equivalent of drifting his plane, like in control, out of control, but he's got it locked down. Like, and I was right next to him, like could hear the airplane, like can see, like I could read things on his helmet, we're like really close together, and just like, it was just one of the craziest visuals. It was one of those moments where I was really like, okay, is this real life?
Right. It's just real life or a movie, man. You get back to the room at night and you're just like, did all that just happen?
Yeah. And it is kind of that same surreal experience of like, that wasn't an insanely planned out thing that we spent a month prepping for. You know, it was like part of the air show routine that we do at air shows. So I was actually just getting spun up to speed on what part of my job is. It was like kind of the quote unquote boring work jump, you know. Right. I was like, oh, this is
one of the routine things, man. You guys did the Jackalope Festival as well, right? Demo there. Yeah,
that wasn't with Red Bull, but that was a super, super cool event with a bunch of really good friends and good people. So basically for people who haven't heard of that festival, it's called Jackalope Fest, and it's kind of a traveling action sports festival. It's mainly based around skateboarding, but it's got, this one had some highlining, base jumpers, freestyle motocross, skimboarding, things like that. So it happened in Virginia Beach. There's a couple other locations, but ours was in Virginia Beach. Got to jump off of a small hotel and do like a base accuracy competition. It was a really fun time getting to jump off a legal building in front of a crowd. That's something that almost never happens, especially in the United States. So,
yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, I was asked by one of the event organizers. They were doing something with some tandems for Gold Star families, I believe, and they asked me to come down and DJ. I wasn't able to do it but hopefully I'll leave the schedule open if they still want me to come back next year. That'd be fun.
Yeah, if you get the chance, I highly recommend it. It was super entertaining. I got to meet Bob Burnquist, who is like,
I saw those pictures. That's awesome.
I used to play him as a character when I was playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater as a little kid. So it was a good time. Anyone who hasn't been out there, I highly recommend it. Super, super cool event, and just, good vibes all around.
That's great. Those full circle moments. And I'm sure, being on the Red Bull team, you'll experience a lot more of those in the years to come. And I look forward to, seeing and hearing about those. Now I'd like to get into your physical training. One of the things that I first noticed about you when you walked in the door was that you put on some muscle mass. You look really solid, and it's been quite the journey for you from the injuries that you sustained from your accident a few years back. And if you could just kind of tell us what your program is like, and maybe walk us through what you've done to get to where you are now.
Yeah. First of all, super cool and stoked that people notice. That's nice, because I've never been a muscular guy in my life. I was a cross country runner for my whole life, and I still value endurance, and I train that pretty intensely as well. But basically it started with recovering from my accident. I kind of lost all my muscle mass everywhere, what little I did have. I got down to 120 pounds when I was in the hospital at 6'1". So I was just, from that point forward, working on getting my body back to a healthy status to be able to base jump and skydive and speed fly again. So I kind of started that and then never stopped. And it's been super nice. Just my routine is basically kind of just 5-6 days a week, training different muscle groups every day. So usually hitting them, kind of like hitting each muscle group 2 or 3 times a week. And then just doing endurance pretty much every day, trying to run at least like 20 miles a week. And the biggest thing that changed for me after, being super skinny to being only a little skinny is I started eating also. Apparently you got to eat big to stay big or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So, but the big part of that process that changed the game a lot for me was getting to go to the Red Bull Athlete Performance Center, the APC. And it's basically a training center offered to Red Bull athletes. There's one in Santa Monica and there's one in Austria. And basically when you go there, you have a team of kind of like health and fitness professionals all smushed into one small space. So if you imagine like a gym, on one side of the gym, you have people whose job it is to evaluate your strength and conditioning and your body mechanics. And then, you move to like the next room, you got like physical therapists, and you move to like the next space and you've got like personal trainers, you got mental performance coach, nutritionist, like a UCLA doctor, like an orthopedic surgeon.
Wow.
So you've got all of these resources that an athlete could prospectively need, just kind of blended into one space, like almost one room. And then obviously all the equipment that goes with it. And it's super cool. So it's something that Red Bull offers. And I went and kind of showed up, got evaluated, figured out where my deficiencies are and where I'm good. And then came up with a unique training plan to me to help improve those deficiencies, right? And balance everything out and get my body moving as effectively as it can. And specific toward my athletic needs for my sport. So, yeah, I mean, couldn't be more grateful. It's one of the many ways that Red Bull is like a very supportive partner.
Yeah, that seemed like an incredible experience. And I was super jealous. I'd love to be able to attend something like that. And, I would just imagine there were so many eye-opening moments, for you as far as, where you were deficient, because, I consider myself a pretty fit guy, but whenever I go to any of those kind of assessments, I'm always, my eyes are always open to, where I'm lacking, and in some cases a lot more than I thought I was. Was there anything like that for you that was really eye-opening, or like, oh man, I need to focus on this particular part of my overall, physical training regimen?
Yeah, some things were obvious, and some things not so much. Even with the obvious ones, though, the impressive thing is that they're able to, there's so much information from varying sources in one space that the team is really able to come up with a good solution that suits your lifestyle, which is something you'll almost never get as someone like me or really any of the other Red Bull athletes, where you're kind of on the road all the time. You're doing things that are not quite mainstream. It's really hard to find good medical and health advice that suit that lifestyle. But for instance, I won't get too far into it, but like my right quad, because I had a right knee injury, atrophied a lot. And then, using that knee in certain ways, some conventional ways, like if I use a leg extension machine, it's extremely painful, which makes it pretty hard to rebuild your quad. And the team's able to like immediately identify that, then on site do an ultrasound, check like my knee's health in general, and kind of like, and then come up with a plan to allow me to train that specific region without damaging it any further. And even in the last couple months after having that consult, basically, everything is starting to get a lot stronger and it hurts less. And it's just like, man, I'm so thankful because my quality of life is improving. My ability as an athlete stands to improve a lot if I, just get that area stronger. And I think in general, like I'll be less injury prone by not having a massive imbalance. I think that's like the big cool thing is that they're able to give me a training plan for what happens when I'm on the road in a different country and don't know where the nearest gym is and don't have all my equipment that I would normally have at home, and, can't quite use my knee that one way, so I can do it this other way instead. It's just, it's really cool.
They give you like a hotel room workout thing as an option.
Yeah, they give me both. Cool. They're like,
nice.
Here's what you can do at a gym, and then here's what you can do if all you have is like an exercise band and like a towel rack. And
that's
like,
awesome.
Yeah, you'll figure it. MacGyver it.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. What did you find most challenging? Was there a particular exercise or like I've never done it, but like the VO2 max thing where you have on the mask with all the tubes and that kind of stuff? Did you find anything that was more challenging than you thought it was going to be?
The VO2 max was fun. It was, I have an endurance background, so I was like, yeah, sign me up. Let's do this. I was excited about that. Kind of one of the surprisingly challenging things was, when you're doing your kind of initial testing, your baseline testing for all of your, physical, whatever, you've got all of these machines and cameras and timers and systems and whatnot that measure the way that you move. So if you're doing like vertical jump, you're jumping off pressure plates in a room with like cameras that are tracking your body movement. And then the pressure plates are showing like when your greatest point of acceleration was, and you can extrapolate that and see, okay, like what part of the jump was that? So like, where am I strongest and which leg is pushing harder? Are they pushing evenly, and how am I landing? I mean, it's insane. And then there's other things like there's basically like a raw leg strength machine or like head strength or like hip strength. There's like all these machines. And basically what they do is either only let you move at a set pace no matter how hard you push, or don't really let you move at all, which is such a defeating way to work out. Like you're just maximizing pressure into something that will never give, which is the opposite of kind of like that motivating feature that happens when you go to the gym and you're like, I'm going to lift a heavy weight today, or I'm going to move something around. And
yeah, sometimes just moving the object is enough to get you going. But,
you're all stoked. I mean, you achieved a goal, right? And so here the goal is like push it as hard as you can, but it will never move. And that, I think in the specific training session, that was one of the most challenging things.
Wow. You also do some agility training, right? Or mental agility training. I think I saw you doing something. It was kind of like the F1 guys where there's a board full of, lights or something to that effect, where you're having to, if the light, goes off, then you're having to react to that. Yeah.
There's, pretty comprehensive testing options on the mental side as well, which is cool. So like reflexes, decision making, multitasking, focus switching. Like there's all kinds of ways to test and train that. And those are interesting, difficult, fun. It's I think it's important to exercise your brain as well, especially in sports like parachute sports are so mental. There is a physical component to them, absolutely, but at the end of the day, a lot of what we do is like working memory, reaction times, decision making. So is the value of that is very evident to me, and I'm very stoked to have that training opportunity now.
Right. Yeah. Skydiving or any other extreme sports, when oftentimes you're required to real time problem solve in a very condensed amount of time, whatever you're doing, you're having to, just figure some things out. So I can see where that would be very applicable. Was there any one test that you found that has helped you?
I think, if anything, because I've only done one session of testing in there with them so far, so I haven't gotten to see like if there's been definitive improvement or whatever. I see some of the tests that would obviously help, right? And like I'll continue to do those exercises and whatever. But I think if you're asking like personally, the answer I could give would be that after having a brain injury, you're always curious where you stack up and how you're doing. And I find that mental testing is a really nice numeric way to prove to yourself that you're still on par with excellent athletes. So that was like one nice thing from that experience, was doing that testing and realizing I'm still awesome at it came off a little boastful. That's not what I meant, but you know what I mean? Just like, okay, my brain still works at the capacity that it needs to in order to do this sport at a super high level.
Right. Yeah. That's got to just up your confidence level, a whole lot, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. And it's great to see you crushing the game of life since you had the accident a few years ago. And it was such a severe accident that I think for a lot of people, it would cause them to change the way that they were doing things, maybe reevaluate life choices and, maybe consider a different path in life. But for you, it seems to have done the opposite. Like you seem to have, ramped up and doubled down on everything you were doing before. How has that experience changed your perspective on the way that you live your life?
Yeah. It's a good question. And I think one thing that I noticed that you also noticed and stated in your question is I seem to have quote unquote doubled down. And it's not that I doubled down about, like pushing harder, taking more risks or anything like that. When I woke up from my accident, my first goal was to get back to flying. Like flying is my life. It's part of who I am. I love it. It makes me smile more than anything else on earth. And that's why I'm where I am. And with that being the case, it also, the accident made me way more focused. And I think that's what you're seeing externally is me having doubled down. I had a lot of time in the hospital to think about everything that I hadn't accomplished yet. And I was like, at I think I was 29 at the time. I was, 29 years old, feeling old in the sport and like, whatever, a little bit. And then having that moment where I crashed and almost lost all of it, and just seeing like, oh, I really wanted to make this happen. I really wanted to do that, all these things, and didn't get a lot of things done. So better start doing them now. And it allowed me to have like a really strong motivation and just focus and clarity that pushed me, or allowed me to push myself to where you see now, I guess. And it's cool because that focus is self-propelling in a way. Like it grows on itself because you start getting more successes and getting those goals and seeing the next opportunities. And it's like, okay, here we go, off to the races again.
Compounding interest and paying dividends for sure.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it for sure.
How has the experience of the accident affected the way that you mitigate risk?
Yeah, I mean, definitely being someone who had never been hurt in the sport, I was willing to take maybe more risks, even though I always considered myself fairly conservative. And I think I was, but like there was kind of a line where, what is it? Normalization of deviance or whatever, where basically nothing's happened yet, so nothing will. That's like the logical fallacy. And I think I kind of fell into that trap a little bit of getting used to getting away with things for whatever reason. And now I'm much, much more pragmatic. I'm still willing to push hard and grow and, reach for the boundaries of what I'm capable of. But there's not really any situations anymore where I'm in my head like, oh, I can't really picture exactly how this is going to go, but I think I'll give it a shot. Now it's more like, have I checked all the boxes? Am I prepared? Are all the variables accounted for to the best of my ability? And I'm still human, so things could still happen, but I think they're less likely to happen when you operate kind of in that mindset.
What do you do during your time to relax, your time off?
Skydive. I definitely go to work for fun. But there's some other things I'm really interested in. It's really hard actually to come up with answers that don't involve flying and doing what I very obviously do. But I mean, something that's like a little less well known, I'm super in love with rock climbing. It's something I've really, really liked since maybe I was 20, 21 years old. And I did it at like a pretty high level for a non-professional for a while, did some amateur competitions and, took it pretty seriously and had a period where I trained hard. And I'm kind of very interested in seeing if I can combine that into some of what I'm doing now, so I'm back on the rock climbing horse, pretty good right now. And, excited to see if I can combine parachute stuff with it. But, for the most part, it's still just something I really, really enjoy for fun. Otherwise I love playing guitar. Same thing, kind of had a period where I hit it really hard. Now, with the career and all of my focus being dedicated somewhere and being on the road all the time, it's not as easy to keep up with all the time, but it still makes me so happy when I go home and just get to like strum out a couple songs for a couple hours or whatever.
Yeah, same thing for me. I've been keeping it in the living room just so, I don't have to necessarily dedicate a whole big chunk of time to, but whenever the mood strikes me and I want to go get in 15 minutes of practice or something, I can. Yeah,
and it's super important to have those non-air sports ways to kind of detune or unwind at the end of the day, or kind of make your brain work in a different way. So
yeah,
I love stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Getting back to the climbing. Yeah, I remember, climbing when you were at the gym a couple times here at TRC in Fayetteville. You're just, to me, you're phenomenal. I was maybe climbing, trying to mess around with some 510s and you're doing, 512s. Do you feel like you've gotten better as a climber now that you've got some more muscle mass, or do you find that actually hurts you a little more on the wall, or what's that experience like for you?
It's interesting. I never stopped climbing during the period where I was exercising. And I also haven't gained a crazy amount of weight. I've gained a little weight for sure, but like, I remember reading an article once where they're talking about the debate, amongst professional climbers between being light and being strong, because there's kind of like maybe an eating disorder problem in the climbing community for a little bit, and maybe ongoing. I don't know, because I'm not really super deep in that world, but, right. And someone just put it pretty flatly, like, I would rather feel strong than feel light. And, that's kind of how I feel right now. Like, my body has adapted well to adding muscle mass and whatever, because I've been climbing the entire time I've been doing it. And now I just feel more stable, less likely to get injured, and way stronger on the wall. And I still seem to have like a similar level of strength and endurance. I'm not climbing at a lower grade, that's for sure. So yeah, if anything, I'm climbing better than I ever have. And that's just before even throwing down a lot of really focused training. So yeah,
nice. That's
going
awesome.
to TRC right after this conversation.
Oh,
actually.
cool.
Yeah.
And can you talk about any of the ideas or the projects that you have that, combine climbing and skydiving?
You'll see them.
Okay. Sounds fair enough. Now I'd like to move on and talk about a different topic. I was doing some research on the 22 Jumps website today, and at the bottom of the page, it had a video, and it had Kieran Wimmer, and he was doing a base jump. I believe it was a wingsuit base jump, and it looked like a pretty normal jump. His canopy open, looked like maybe he had a belly or chest mounted camera, and it was looking up at him. You could see his face and the canopy in the background after he opened. It seemed pretty uneventful. You can see him looking around, flying around, and he doesn't have a real excited look on his face. But then you see, he just says "motherfucker," and then he just drops straight into the water. And then the screen goes black, and a quote pops up. It said, "Lesson learned: if you die before your edit is finished, you don't get the final cut." And that, that kind of gave me some goosebumps. But if you can talk about the 22 Jumps project, your involvement with it, and how that relates to Kieran's story.
Yeah. So basically, for those of you that don't know the kind of statistic that got thrown around social media a while ago, there's this, statistic that 22 veterans commit suicide daily in the United States. And obviously that's a very sad statistic. But it's where the name 22 Jumps comes from. The founder's brother incurred a traumatic brain injury, did not recover well from it, and eventually wound up taking his own life. And the founder started this initiative to try to help make sure that never happens again. So the goal of 22 Jumps is to use base jumping and air sports as a vehicle to raise awareness and raise funds for traumatic brain injury research and suicide prevention. And from what I've seen, they do a really good job of that with what they have to work with. And I got involved with the organization loosely back in 2023. Just kind of met some of the guys, learned a little bit about them, and it was post-injury for me. So obviously it's close to home. I work with the military often. I've experienced a traumatic brain injury. I understand how lonely that place can be and how helpless that place can feel. So I wanted to do what I could to help out. So I did media for them for a little bit, just kind of like volunteered my time to make some videos and do some edits and little things I could do to just help promote the message. And then this year, I was invited to participate in a fundraising event at the Prix Bridge, where me and two other jumpers went and made 22 base jumps in a day. So really, fun up front when you think about it, like, oh, I'm going to go make a bunch of base jumps. But at the same time, you start thinking about the logistics. It's all foot powered, right? So if I jump down 22 times, I got to climb up 22 times. It wound up being somewhere just under 11,000 feet of vertical hiking in 7 hours with 22 base jumps in there. So it kind of becomes, from that regard, more of an endurance effort with base jumping breaks. And it was a really fun experience, super humbling and really motivating. It kind of reminded me of maybe like the Wings for Life run, that kind of feeling where you're pushing your body really hard, but it's for a good reason, so you're willing to do it. And I had a great time.
Were there packers that helped you, so you didn't have to worry about that part of it? But
yeah, there's a team packing for us, so that was hugely helpful. It would have taken way longer if you had to stop at the top every time and pack.
Right.
And also there were like medics on site. There's a nutrition team down at the bottom who was kind of like keeping track of your hydration levels and your energy levels and kind of like what was going on with your body. Are you cramping? What do you need? Do you need this or that? And just basically every time we land, which wound up being every 15 to 20 minutes, would just be like shoving food down your throat, or, like if you start bonking at the end because your body's all tapped out of energy, they're like shoving Red Bull and honey water and whatever you need to kind of carry you through the last couple hours. So they were super helpful. It was a good team, and couldn't have done it otherwise. I could have, but it would have taken all day and all night.
Right. Yeah, I've only done that jump once, and the hike out was pretty leisurely. So I can imagine that you guys were having to push pretty hard to make sure that you get those 22 jumps in. And I can't remember how did you have any kind of lap times on that? Were you keeping track of any of that, or were any of the team kind of keeping track of that?
Yeah, I was keeping track of it because I got a little competitive, especially with one of the other jumpers. One of the guys jumped like first, in the event. Mm-hmm. And so there was like a couple minute gap between him jumping and then me jumping and then the other guy jumping. And maybe 10 jumps into the event, the guy who had jumped first had almost caught up to me. And it became a thing. So we started racing each other, and
nice.
I ended up being able to like put a bunch of time back on him, and I think it was more or less even by the end. But so I was throwing. I think we were doing 3 jumps an hour. So
wow.
It's basically when you include putting the gear on and like stowing your stash bag and getting prepped on the railing and then doing the jump and then stashing your gear and whatever. Like the hike is pretty fast. I don't know how long it usually takes, but we were doing it fairly quickly. So
yeah,
probably like 7 or 8
10
minutes.
years ago when I was doing it. So man, that was such a fun jump with with Miles and Travis Pastrana. And, oh man,
could have picked a better crew to go jump with,
right? Well, man, I really appreciate you coming out. It's been cool to quickly catch up, on a lot of things that are going down in your life. And I was just wondering, before we shut things down here, what's next for you?
I've got the next kind of like out there thing that I'm pretty excited about. I'm heading to Italy in like 2.5 weeks and hopping on a helicopter and doing some kind of like heli base tours for a few days in the Dolomites. So we'll just get motored up to the top and dropped off and basically just boogie and get a bunch of jumps from really high altitude base jumps out in the Dolomites without having to do any hiking.
Wow.
Whole bunch of wingsuiting, playing with friends. That's kind of the next thing I'm pretty stoked on.
That's awesome. And if you could sum up your approach to life, what would it be?
Have as much fun as possible without ruining it for anybody else.
I love it. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.